According to General Hospital previews, Rick Lansing holds a deadly card, using his knowledge of Christina Corinthos Davis's attempt to kill Ava Jerome, which resulted in a near-fatal crash for him and Elizabeth Baldwin, as leverage in a blackmail scheme involving Alexis Davis. With Elizabeth still reeling from Lucky Spencer's decision to leave her for greater adventures, despite his heartfelt proposal last week, Rick's lingering feelings for his ex-wife may lead to a shocking ultimatum. Another chance at their past romance in exchange for dropping his blackmail. Will Rick take advantage of Elizabeth's vulnerability to reignite their romance? Or will she hold firm, risking Christina's expose and Alexis' downfall? Rick's blackmail tightens its grip. Rick's plot, which involves forcing Alexis to protect Christina while siding with Ava, provides him power, but his feelings for Elizabeth confuse his motivations. Knowing Christina's crime implicates Elizabeth as a witness, Rick may address her, proposing to bury the evidence if she gives their relationship a chance. Any remaining charm he possesses may conflict badly with his harsh techniques, leaving Elizabeth dissatisfied and devastated. If Rick pushes this arrangement, would she accept it to protect Christina and Alexis, or will she reject him given his history of manipulation? Elizabeth's heart fights back against her principles. Elizabeth's loneliness is exacerbated by Lucky's departure, leaving her vulnerable, but her determination to avoid past mistakes, such as her tumultuous relationship with Rick, remains strong. She has made it obvious since his return to Port Charles that they will never be in a relationship again. However, a romantic overture linked to blackmail may rekindle old sentiments, but it will also repel her, especially after Rick's previous plots. If she hesitates, we can be confident that everyone from her friends to her foes, such as Carly Spencer, will advise her to remain cautious. Will Elizabeth risk her love for Christina's safety, or will she call Rick's bluff and challenge him to reveal the truth? A deal with serious consequences. If Rick asks love in exchange for leniency, the consequences could redefine his tenuous relationship with Elizabeth. Her agreement may save Christina but trap her in a toxic relationship, and we have to ask why she would go out on a limb for the Davis sisters. If she refuses, Rick may escalate, threatening Alexis and Christina. But is this truly Elizabeth's problem to begin with? Aren't Christina and Alexis both now convicted of crimes? Will Rick's demand for another chance with Elizabeth in exchange for dropping his blackmail succeed? Or will her defiance unravel his plan and spark a war? Elizabeth Weber had finally found some quiet in her life. After years of emotional turmoil, betrayals, and unfulfilled promises, things began to settle. Her boys were well, her job at General Hospital was stable, and for the first time in a long time, she could wake up without fearing calamity. That serenity was hard-earned and fragile, a thread that might easily snap, and it did the day Rick Lansing strolled back into her life with wistful eyes and an unfinished business in his heart. It had been months since Rick's previous attempt to break into her world. His blackmail attempt, which had threatened those close to her, had cost him every shred of Liz's trust. She'd cut him off totally, denying his calls, texts, and every apology he'd attempted to deliver through mutual contacts. Liz had meant it when she declared she was finished. So when Rick arrived at the hospital unexpectedly, Elizabeth's gut constricted. He looked the same suit-ironed, overconfident smile, but something was different in his eyes. Perhaps less arrogance, or maybe more desperation. She crossed her arms and spoke in a calm, professional tone. Rick, unless this is about a legal consultation for a patient, you shouldn't be here. He did not quiver at the cold. I am not here to cause trouble, Liz. I only need 5 minutes. She sighed, not because she wanted to, but because she was tired. Fine. 5 minutes. Let's chat in private. They walked into an empty break room. Rick sighed as the door snapped shut, as if he'd been holding his breath to be this near to her again. I dropped everything, he replied swiftly. It was blackmail. The leverage. All of it. I walked away. You should have never started, Liz remarked. That was not noble. That was you tidying up your own mess. I know, Rick confessed. But I am not here to justify what I did. I'm here because I still love you. Liz blinked. The bluntness of it hit like a slap. I have been in love with you for years, even when I didn't show it properly, especially then. And I'm quite aware that what I did made me appear unworthy of you. Perhaps I didn't, but I let it go, all of it. Because I recognized that having power over others was not worth losing the only person I'd ever sought a meaningful future with. She stared at him, stunned to stillness. Rick was at his most vulnerable, stripped of legal armor and devoid of deception, simply a man asking for another chance. But Elizabeth had learned the hard way that love was insufficient if you couldn't trust the one offering it. "You hurt me," she replied, her voice gentle yet sharp. "You used people. You used me. You made me doubt everything. Do you think a clean slate will instantly erase that?" "No," Rick replied. "But I'm asking for a chance to prove you that I can be better. Not for you. For me." Liz did not respond. She walked out. But Rick did not go away. He began to appear in the background of her life again. He is no longer as forceful and invasive as he once was, with no surprise roses or cryptic notes. He helped with pro bono cases at the hospital's legal clinic. He attended GH charity events, always remaining on the periphery and never intruding into her space. Elizabeth slowly began to sense a difference. He changed. Not all at once and not in ways that could undo the past, but he was trying. And that was unsettling. Franco was gone. Finn had left her orbit. Jason was a ghost from another life. Elizabeth no longer had a romantic relationship with anyone, and a part of her had determined she didn't need one. Rick's insistence, however, was not initially motivated by romantic feelings. He started coming up when she needed help. When a patient's family attempted to sue over a misdiagnosis, Rick appeared in the hospital boardroom with minimal fanfare and dismissed the threat. Rick addressed Jake's legal needs following a school incident without any strings attached. Elizabeth couldn't deny that his presence began to feel beneficial, familiar. But every time she found herself letting down her guard, she remembered all the ways Rick had exploited her in the past, the lies, the plots, and the way he used love as a ruse for power. She ran into Rick outside the hospital one evening after working an especially long shift. He was resting against his car, drinking coffee, and watching the snow fall on Port Charles. He smiled upon seeing her. "I didn't know you were still here," she said. "Didn't want to leave without saying good night." Something inside her cracked. Perhaps it was tiredness, loneliness, or the faintest glimmer of curiosity that refused to fade. She walked over, hands stuffed inside her coat pockets. "I don't know what you expect," she continued, her voice tight. "We can't go back. I am not the same woman you hurt." "I don't want to go back," Rick responded. "I'd like to start over. With who we are today. Not like who we used to be." There was quiet. Then she asked, "Why me, Rick? Why now?" He stared her directly in the eyes. "Because you were the only person who ever believed in my positive qualities. And I want to be the man you thought I could be." Liz went away without responding, but his words remained. They encountered each other again at a hospital fundraising event. Elizabeth had dressed up, allowing herself to enjoy the evening without the weight of expectations. Rick was present, but he kept his distance, speaking with Monica and Alexis while schmoozing contributors. Elizabeth found herself watching him, waiting for him to stumble, to say something calculated or reveal himself. But he did not. He was calm, real. And this made it more difficult for her to control her rage. Later that night, when the crowd had dispersed, Rick discovered her standing alone on the hospital patio. He approached gently. "Would you allow me to take you to dinner?" he asked. Not as a grand romantic gesture. Only two persons with history. A calm place. There's no pressure. Elizabeth paused. "Dinner doesn't fix anything." "I know," he replied. "It just starts something." She agreed, but she was unsure why. Curiosity? Pity? Hope? Perhaps all three. Their supper started somewhat awkwardly. They discussed the boys, the hospital, and Spoon Island's recent upgrades. However, the conversation gradually moved on to more serious topics, such as their common history, regrets, and mistakes. Rick did not avoid accountability. He accepted responsibility for all of his terrible decisions. And he did not press. When Elizabeth questioned why he hadn't fought harder earlier, he replied, "Because I didn't know how. I just knew how to win, not how to earn." That line stayed with her. They continued to meet over the next few weeks. Dinner transformed into coffee. Coffee turned into walks. They gradually regained their original rhythm, familiar but not suffocating. He made her laugh not because he wanted to impress her. He did not flatter. He did not push. And when he eventually grabbed for her hand one night outside her house, she did not back away. The kiss didn't happen until a week later, after Rick had helped Cameron prepare for a college interview. Elizabeth stood in the doorway, admiring Rick's ability to communicate to her kids so easily. And when she leaned in and sweetly kissed him, it wasn't explosions but warmth. It was comforting. It was the start of something they didn't realize they were still capable of. Of course, not everyone agreed. Carly flipped when she heard the news. "This is Rick Lansing, Liz. Do you suppose a leopard changes his markings just because he sheds one layer of skin?" Even Nicholas, who had returned to town following his last resurrection, had reservations. "You are better than this, Liz. Rick is not safe." However, Elizabeth did not allow other voices to drown out her own senses. She'd made enough errors to know which ones were hers to own, and which she needed to stop fearing. "I don't need him to be perfect," she informed Nicholas. "I just need him to be honest." But honesty was never Rick's strong suit. And just as things started to feel real, Rick's past threatened to resurface with a vengeance. A mystery figure from one of Rick's past blackmail targets, whom he had long assumed would never re-emerge, arrived in town. Their unexpected entrance jolted Rick. He got distracted and evasive. He stopped taking calls. Elizabeth also noticed. When she confronted him, he did not lie. He told her everything, even an earlier case and a legal error that bordered on criminal conspiracy, about someone he had wounded years before who had unexpectedly reappeared, threatening exposure. Rick was scared not for himself but for her. "I thought I could bury it," he said. "But the past never stays buried in Port Charles." Elizabeth listened with an inscrutable look. She did not blow up. She did not run. She sat with it. Then she stated, "If you hide this from me again, we're done." He vowed he would not. And he honored his promise. They worked together to deal with the aftermath. Rick faced legal ramifications, which were unexpectedly low due to the statute of limitations and Diane's skillful maneuvering. But more significantly, he faced himself. For the first time, he did not attempt to avoid the agony. He sensed it. I owned it. Let it alter him. By the end of the chapter, something had changed between him and Elizabeth. They weren't in love like they used to be, manic, frantic, and blind. They possessed a greater stability, a foundation based on resilience rather than passion. Rick began spending more evenings at her home but never moved in. He respected her personal space. He helped Jake with his school tasks. He attended Aiden's recitals. He learned how to coexist in their environment without attempting to rule it. Elizabeth's heart slowly began to open. Not fully, not yet, but enough. One night she found herself sitting alongside Rick on the couch, her head on his shoulder, a Liam Neeson film playing on the television, and she realized something she hadn't believed in a long time. She felt safe. Rick had not become a new man overnight, but rather because he had begun to develop a desire to be different. For her. To her sons. For himself. Perhaps second chances were not only possible in Port Charles. Perhaps at times they were required. General Hospital spoilers and updates for the week of Monday, June 23rd through Friday, June 27th include stunning surveillance, embarrassing moments, and severe warnings. Jen Sidwell's stunning surveillance disclosed. Tracy Quartermain provokes uncomfortable moments with a public exhibition, and Michael Corinthos issues a stern warning. Shocking surveillance. Sidwell's alarming surveillance of Port Charles residents is revealed when he examines images taken of Gio Palmieri and Christina Corinthos Davis without their consent. It appears that Sidwell is creating a list of people to attack, all of whom are somehow tied to Sonny Corinthos, including his newly disclosed grandson, Gio. What's surprising is that none of them realize they were being watched, and the person with the camera needs a telescoping lens to achieve close-up shots like the ones displayed. Read more. Find out what happened on the last episode of GH. Sonny's voice may be heard over Sidwell's views of Gio and Christina's images, and it is assumed that he is speaking with Jason Morgan or others. It wouldn't be shocking if he tells Anna Devane and Dante Falconeri as well, saying, "Violence is coming to Port Charles and we have to stop it." Embarrassing moments. Tracy has also clearly been persuaded to attend Drew Kane's press conference, where she appears to cause some embarrassing moments on public display. She is behind the podium as Drew says, "My Aunt Tracy would like to address her yourself," and she adds, "I have to tell you the truth." Martin Gray and Kai Taylor are in the crowd, and Tracy's revelation shocks and surprises them both. The key question is whether she's telling the truth she agreed to with Michael and Curtis Ashford earlier, which isn't the truth to make Drew believe he won, or her own truth. Whatever Tracy says is a doozy, judging by the astonished expressions on Kai and Martin's faces, as well as Martin's hands appearing to pause while clapping. Read this. General Hospital spoilers. Sidwell comes half clean with Sonny and it won't end well. Brooke Lynn doesn't like what she sees, and she and Chase come to a realization. Brooke Lynn Quartermain Chase dislikes what she sees, and she and Harrison Chase subsequently come to a revelation. It's probable that they're also responding to Tracy's revelation at Drew's press conference, as Chase looks down and Brooke Lynn screams, "Oh no!" A man's shoulder can be seen in the frame to Chase's right, indicating that they are in an area where people are standing and sitting closely together. On the other side, this photo may be taken at baby Daisy Gilmore Corinthos' baptism service on Friday, when Brooke Lynn and Chase realize what's going on. On the same day, Sonny will be shocked. Would Sidwell disrupt the service and endanger everyone? Serious warnings. In the Quartermain home, Michael has clearly summoned Willow Tate for a serious discussion concerning their children, Wiley and Amelia Corinthos. He conveys his point brusquely, and the look on Willow's face indicates that he is also making it crystal clear. He stares her in the eyes and warns her unequivocally, "If you marry Drew, you will never see our children again." Willow is plainly questioning her decision to accept Drew's proposal, despite Martin's legal advice that marriage will put her in a stronger position for custody. The air in Port Charles had become thicker with tension. For weeks, a weird sense of discomfort had persisted across the city like a low-hanging fog. Initially, it had been subtle, closed-door meetings, abrupt silences when specific names were spoken, and a few mysterious disappearances that most attributed to coincidence. However, those who had lived in Port Charles long enough understood better. There was never a coincidence in this town. The strands of danger were always present, braided beneath the surface, waiting for someone to pull too hard and disrupt the peace. Sonny Corinthos was the first to notice the alteration. He was not new to battle, and his instincts had always kept him ahead of the game. However, this new tension felt different. It wasn't just rival businesses or petty territorial conflicts. It was planned, methodical, and almost surgical. Someone was exploring, testing boundaries, and pushing just enough to prevent a full confrontation. But not for long. Whoever it was, they were growing braver. It began with shipping. Several late arrivals, a misrouted container, and an intercepted delivery. On the surface, it appeared to be a logistics issue. But Sonny's contacts suggested a different story. One of sabotage. Brick had began an inquiry, quietly collecting surveillance footage, hacking into dock reports, and speaking with port officials. What he discovered made Sonny's stomach turn. Someone had faked his identity on a paper authorizing the goods to be rerouted. Not once but several times. And each reroute went through shell firms that had no obvious ownership. Ghost trails. A pattern that only a skilled designer could create. Across town, Anna Devane was chasing her own shadow path. A confidential informant had informed her of a probable arms stockpile being created in upstate New York, just outside the PCPD's authority, but close enough to threaten Port Charles if it became operational. The weapons were not ordinary either. They were experimental, modified, and hazardous. High-end technology with military-grade upgrades. The type of weaponry intended for large-scale damage. She worked the lead discreetly, calling on Jordan Ashford only when absolutely necessary. They couldn't risk a leak. Not now. Anna's darkest fears were becoming clear. Someone wasn't simply stirring havoc in Port Charles. They were planning something much greater. Something violent. Then followed the blast. A late-night blast ripped through the abandoned railway station near the harbor, which had long been considered neutral ground. There were no injuries, but the damage was considerable. Brick and Dex arrived on the scene in minutes, and what they discovered only fueled the mystery. No detonator. There are no wires. Simply a precision operation involving remote-triggered charges activated by a garbled signal, that took their technical team hours to partially decode. The message contained within the signal was chilling. This is just the beginning. Choose a side. Sonny took the threat personally. He strengthened security, doubled patrols, and welcomed Jason Morgan into the fold. Jason has been keeping low since his return, attempting to rebalance his life after months of turmoil. But now he was back to full enforcer mode. He worked quietly and deliberately, analyzing each move like a chessboard. It didn't take him long to realize that the explosion was not random. It was a message. Not only to Sonny, but to all of Port Charles's main players. A warning. A declaration. They had an adversary. Jason and Carly met late at night on the dock to share notes. Carly had also been looking into it, utilizing her connections at Metrocourt, the Courtamane name, and even Ava Jerome. What she discovered did not make sense. A shell firm had lately purchased 3 properties in Port Charles, one near the docks, one next to the old Jerome Gallery, and another near the hospital. All of the purchases were made in cash and under fictitious names. The paperwork was flawless, and the trail was practically imperceptible. Almost. Carly wasn't as trained or accurate as Anna or Jason, but she was determined. And once she got her hands on something, she wouldn't let go. She discovered a name. Not a real one, but a code that appears in multiple transactions. Vigil. Jason's expression hardened as she told him. That name had haunted the WSB's archives for many years. It had appeared in terrorist plans, biological weapons deals, and political coups. There is no face or fingerprint, only damage in their wake. Back at the hospital, Elizabeth Weber was drawn into the commotion in an entirely unexpected way. A young kid had come at the no ID, barely conscious, and covered in burns from the explosion. The girl could not speak, but she held a locket with the name Lila Ray engraved within. Although she is not Elizabeth's daughter, her name is known. It was Sky Chandler's daughter. And Sky had vanished months before, leaving no trace. Elizabeth phoned Sam McCall. They began piecing together where Sky had gone and why her daughter would be in Port Charles, alone, injured, and scared. The answer came from an unlikely source. Robert Scorpio. He'd been monitoring Sky under WSB suspicion, suspecting she'd been kidnapped by a rogue intelligence cell that had since vanished. But now he was afraid it hadn't gone dark at all. It merely shifted its aims. Meanwhile, Michael Corinthos was experiencing his own difficulty. ELQ had been compromised. A large data breach exposed confidential investor information, which was then exploited to manipulate the stock price. A hostile takeover was underway. Quiet, subtle, and supported by international investors with ties to notorious criminal businesses. Ned and Drew attempted to contain the damage, but it was spreading. The corporation was not only at peril, it was being weaponized. Then came the note, folded neatly in an inconspicuous envelope and slid under Michael's office door. You built your empire on lies. Now watch it crumble. Willow discovered him in the office later, still looking at the note. She tried to soothe him, but he was already thinking of their children. Wiley, Amelia, were they in danger too? He increased security at home, called Sonny, and requested that Jason keep an eye on them. He didn't trust the cops. Not with this. Across town, Trina Robinson discovered a clue of her own. She had been working late at the Jerome Gallery when she discovered a secret envelope within an old art shipment that Ava hadn't unpacked. Inside was a grainy black and white image of Victor Cassadine. But he was not alone. He was standing alongside a man Trina did not recognize. A man wearing a ring with the initials DRV, engraved in Gothic script. The photograph was taken about 6 months before Victor died. Trina presented it to Ava, who instantly froze. She recognized the man. He had been to Windermere years ago, acting as a curator interested in Cassadine art. But he hadn't been there for the paintings. He had been looking for something buried, something Helena had concealed before she died. A vault, sealed beneath Spoon Island. A vault said to contain research, weaponry, and records too hazardous for the world to see. Now it was gone. Valentine verified days later that the vault had been breached. He'd gone to Spoon Island to investigate, only to discover evidence of a break-in. Acid melted the locks, frying the sensors. Someone knew exactly what they were doing. The stakes had officially changed. It wasn't about territory or money anymore. This was about power. Global power. Then came the following communication, which was a public show rather than a note or a threat. During the town's annual Founders' Day festival, the power went out. All screens went black. Then a voice blasted through the speakers, disguised and distorted, but chillingly clear. Port Charles was established on secrets. Secrets have repercussions. You have ignored the warnings. Now comes the reckoning. The audience panicked. Parents grabbed the children. Police scrambled. Sonny, Jason, Anna, and Carly exchanged stares. The enemy was no longer hiding. They were here. They were also watching. From then on, nothing was safe. The hospital's blood supply had been affected. The school board received anonymous threats warning of a lesson in fear. An explosion shook the Coeur d'Alene boathouse. Laura Collins discovered graffiti scrawled on the mayor's office wall. The river runs red. Do not say we didn't warn you. Everyone in power became a target. Nobody was immune. Curtis Ashford formed a covert task group, relying on contacts from his past and erstwhile allies who owed him favors. He brought in Selena Wu, despite her notoriety, knowing her reach went into areas they couldn't lawfully enter. Selena did not hesitate. This enemy isn't playing by your rules, she informed Curtis. Do you want answers? Then quit assuming that honor will protect you. They started probing deeper, connecting the dots and seeking for names. And they discovered something hidden in the archives of ancient Cassadine journals. Comments Helena had made in the margins of her diary. Scribbles on a prophecy. About a leader who emerges from chaos. About the vigil. The puzzle snapped into place. This wasn't simply about vengeance and power. It was about legacy. Someone was attempting to finish what Helena started. The ultimate shock occurred when a body washed up near the docks. It wasn't just anybody. It was Nicholas Cassadine. At least they thought so. Because when the autopsy began, the pathologist became frozen. The body bore Nicholas' face. His DNA and fingerprints did not match. A microchip, which had only been used in WSB experiments decades ago, was implanted in the man's wrist. Anna was the first to mention it. It's a clone. A live and breathing copy. A pawn. A decoy. If there was one clone, how many more? Sonny realized that guns and threats would not be enough to win this conflict. This was a battle of shadows, subterfuge, and science. And the opposition was more than just a rival organization. It was a force dedicated to rewriting Port Charles from the inside out. The residents of the town could sense it. Streets that had once seemed safe were suddenly questionable. Old allegiances were being questioned. Friendships weakened under scrutiny. Love is stretched by dread. Nobody knew who to trust, who was real, and who was involved in something far more terrible than they could have anticipated. As the sun fell over the harbor, another message arrived. This one was brought straight to Sonny by a drone that hovered outside his penthouse window before dropping a box at his doorway. Inside was a simple chess piece called the King, split down the middle. General Hospital JH spoilers indicate that the ABC soap has just released its preview video for the week of June 23rd to 27th, and it is explosive on all aspects. The teaser concluded with a heated confrontation between exes Willow Tate, Caitlin McMullen, and Michael Corinthos, Rory Gibson. They appear to be in the living room of the Coeur d'Alene Estate Gatehouse, the family's former home, when Michael warns Willow, "If you marry Drew, I will make sure you never see our kids again." Yikes! Given Michael's recent award of full guardianship over Wiley Corinthos, Viren Weaver, and Amelia Corinthos, Sequoia and Serenity Mork Mako, Willow should take this threat seriously. Unfortunately, Willow's mental state remains unstable, as she continues to be influenced by Drew Kane, Cameron Matheson. It's unclear why she's in the Gatehouse or Coeur d'Alene Estate in the first place, as Michael was unsure whether the kids should see their mother during the week of June 23rd to 27th, despite Amelia's request for her at bedtime one night. Was Willow welcomed, or did she sneak onto the property? That appears unknown at this point. However, it appears that Willow will, inadvertently, notify Michael of her marriage intentions with Drew during their conversation. Will she have a ring when she sees Michael? Will he notice it? That's difficult to say, but Drew and Willow's wedding plans are a horrible idea on so many levels. The entire concept arises from the belief that as a married couple, they'd appear significantly more united against single dad Michael.